School is destroying our children. Now you might be thinking, that's a bold statement, Juwayria. Let me tell you why I believe it. Earlier this year, I went on a 3-week visit to my extended family. And in this time, I spent quite a lot of time with my friends and cousins. The smallest of them is Muhammad, who's 5. He amazes me. He's highly intuitive, wonderfully perceptive, he has an endless imagination, and the most expressive facial reactions. So one evening, he and I were together, and he was telling me all sorts of things about himself, like what his favorite character toys were, what games he liked to play. And at one point, we had a world globe, and he was looking for countries he or his parents had been to, and he was trying to find and read ones he'd heard about. And at some point, we picked up a Rubik's Cube. So he sat on my lap, and he explained how he could only solve so many sides, or just the top 2 rows. And I'd jumble it up, and he'd do it again, and he'd explain something a little different each time. While we had been busy, his mother got out his school bag. So she dug in his school bag and pulled out a book with the most recent test he'd done. Now remember, he's 5. And so she opened this book and read what was inside. And I don't remember exactly what she said, but she said something along the lines of, "We went through this together, Nunes. What happened? How come you didn't get it right?" As soon as she said what she did, I just stopped. Little Muhammad turned towards his mother, shrugged his shoulders, and moved away, all thoughts of the Rubik's Cube forgotten. I, on the other hand, stood there shocked, thinking about the entire past few hours I'd spent with this child, how amazing it had been to sit and listen to all the things he knew and didn't know, and all the questions he had asked, and how none of that seemed to matter in the so-called broader context of school because he didn't get all the answers right. Now, don't get me wrong, his mother wasn't saying it was the end of the world, and he seemed to pay minimal attention to what she had said, but it hit me hard. I was shocked to think that a 5-year-old was made to believe that that is a sum or measurement of his abilities, and by extension, of him. In that moment, an indescribable time ended, blinked out of existence. And in that moment, he was being taught a lesson, one of many over the years to come, that his performance in school is a terribly important thing, that this education system, the same system that his parents had grown up in and had now bought into, was going to define his success in life. In that moment, I saw what I have seen time and time again, that a child like him is restricted from an early age. His freedom gone. His freedom to choose how he spends his time, whether or not he can immerse himself in his interests, or simply do what makes him happy. He has some restricted choices, but they are predetermined while giving him the illusion of choice. School is saying children can't be trusted to spend their time wisely. They cannot know what real interests or pursuits are. So you cannot learn by watching YouTube videos or tutorials, or perhaps even TED Talks. Comic books could never be as beneficial as classic literature. A child is told, your interests, your passions, your curiosities are not important or valuable. The school system and parents as agents of the system are telling him and all young people that we don't trust you to know what you need to know, so we will tell you what you need to learn. And from as young as 5, a strict curriculum is enforced to ensure success in life. How much of a child's core self-beliefs are being developed from this young age? How much do they begin to understand about the world around them and themselves? School takes away their freedom to play, to explore and experiment, to try and fail. These restrictions and lack of freedom, what has it done to them? To their sense of self, to their confidence? How valuable do they feel? How much do they believe they're capable of? How well do they get to know themselves? Is there space to discover themselves? When an 18-year-old needs to take a gap year to go find themselves because they don't know who they are, what they want to study, or what to do with their lives, what does that tell you about the system they were raised in? It says that they were raised in an oppressive system that never gave them the freedom to discover for themselves, to try and fail. And the child wouldn't know if they could succeed or fail. They aren't given the choice in the first place. There was a quote I heard recently which I found to be the perfect disruption. It said, "Comparison is an act of violence against the self." And the first thing I thought about was school tests, how school emphasizes competition and comparison. how it encourages learning to the test rather than real learning. There was an absolutely absurd comment made by a little 6-year-old girl I know earlier this year, whose family asked her if she could stay with them over the holidays a little longer. So I listened to this voice note, and I played it again and again. And the more I listened to it, the more I thought back to little Muhammad and all the other little people I've encountered. So this little girl said, and I quote, "I have to go back to school. If I don't go back to school, I'll never get to learn anything again." This child has been led to believe that she cannot learn outside of school, and that if she doesn't go to school, she'll fall behind and not become successful. I speak to a lot of young people, and almost all of them have told me that in school they are often labeled or boxed, and that these labels are so restrictive that it has made it so easy for others to judge them. A 17-year-old I know said, "School makes me feel judged, whether it be the marks I get or the way other students see me. It has ruined learning for me, and sometimes it can be hell on earth." School is destroying the beautiful natural curiosity children have to learn and is replacing it with competition, testing, and comparison. School is pitting children against each other to be number one, to get that trophy, and make your family proud. The system which is so prevalent worldwide today, in a simple sense, is hurting our children. It is harmful and damaging. It is forcing children to silence and repress huge parts of themselves. It is denying these wonderfully expressive imaginations. It makes them feel powerless. They are filled with self-hate, and they are so afraid to fail because they are made to believe the stakes are so high. What is the broader and long-term impact of all this judgment and restriction? Along with a more entrenched education system, which is being enforced from an earlier age than ever before, we are seeing a huge increase in childhood depression, anxiety, and suicide. And while we cannot claim that school alone is the cause of these mental health illnesses, there are strong links between the two. India is seeing a huge increase in student suicides, from 17 a day in 2007 to 26 a day in 2016. In Germany, there are more suicide attempts by young people under the age of 25 than by any other age group. In the United States, there are on average 3,069 suicide attempts every day by young people in grade 9 to 12. In South Africa, 1 in 4 teens has attempted suicide. Let that sink in. This is the damage that is being done to our children. Our children are suffering so much emotionally that they would rather kill themselves than face their lives. Parents, unfortunately, are buying into the same system they've been brought up in. They continue to subject their children to it. Why sacrifice our children's health and well-being to uphold a flawed, oppressive, and harmful system? My understanding is that it can be summed up in one word: fear. The system instills in each of us the fear that you cannot be a success outside of it. It creates the illusion of a safety net, this guarantee of success, which is exactly that, an illusion. It thrives on the fear and convinces parents and children that if they leave, there won't be a net to catch them. School is creating factory workers, not critical thinkers. So is school the only way? Is there no escape or alternative? What if we gave children the freedom to direct their own learning? What if we partnered with them instead of forcibly directing them? Perhaps now is a good time to introduce myself. Hi, I'm Juwayria. I'm an 18-year-old self-directed learner, Muslim, woman of color, living in a post-apartheid South Africa. I was in grade 1 in the same school system before my family embarked on a journey of unlearning years of indoctrination and oppression and embraced a life of self-directed education. We took the courageous step to learn and live differently and left behind the pain, suffocation, and damage. I'm exploring this ever-growing and changing world as someone who is going to inherit it like any other young person. My journey so far has been different to those in school because I've been able to do so without the confinement of labels or boxes that school would give me. I have been labeled, though: rebel, outsider, crazy, even stupid. My parents have been called irresponsible and reckless, purely because we don't conform. I've had the opportunity to discover myself, to journey through myself, to find what makes me happy and fulfilled. I've had the freedom to explore my strengths and my weaknesses. I've been a business owner since the age of 13, and that is only one way through which I grow. My journey and growth has allowed me to reflect on and be critical of the oppressive school system that is in South Africa and across the world. I am passionate about dismantling, transforming, and reinventing school for the sake of our children and their future. The past 11 years of my life are proof that you cannot just survive outside the system, but thrive. And so I urge you to question the system, the methods, the authority, and whether it is indeed beneficial. Is keeping our children in school worth it? Are we going to stand up and demand change? Thank you.